because it's filtering like this and keeping the sacrifice alive and alive. God bless our Gold Star families. God bless our heroes. And God bless them.
Okay. Um, Now I'm going to introduce a lady, and her name is Allie Franklin. Allie is one of our counselors, and she's going to be working with us for the rest of the day. Allie's not here. This is for the recording. Okay? Thank you, Allie. Good to see you. And now that everybody's had their break and we're getting ready for lunch, I would like to introduce a special guest. His name is George Lutz. George came out from Virginia to be with us today, and I'm going to let him explain what he's doing. George Lutz, please. How was lunch?
As always, you're a great host.
Thank you. I prepared the steak myself.
All right, this is more complicated than I thought. No, I'll talk for you guys. It's just for him. You mind if I take this off? Okay. Just gonna walk a little bit. Great. Shirley, it's an honor to be here. I know Shirley has been organizing this for many, many years, and what a powerful, powerful moment this is. If you can see it from here, I'm sure you all have, to see these are not just banners, are they? They're lives. These are individual heroes that gave their lives for us. To be able to do this right now, what we're doing in this free country, and it's just really a powerful picture. And this is just a few of the tens of thousands who have given their lives for our nation, and not just on the war on terror, but throughout history. I have a moment to share. I came all the way from Virginia. I live in Norfolk, Virginia, in case anybody that's on the other side of the coast, but came all the way out here because Shirley invited me to be a part of this just amazing time, but also because I have an opportunity to share and love on families who have given so much. And I'm here to do a special presentation to a number of families, but I thought it might be wise to share with you what it is that my mission is, so that you understand it just a little bit before we go into the presentation phase of this. Because I, like those families here, have suffered through the same experience. On December 29th, 2005, I got that knock on the door when two uniformed soldiers came to my house and gave me those 5 very simple words: "We regret to inform you." And it's one of the most devastating moments of my life, as it is for those here with me, to have heard those words and not know how to react. What do you do with that information? I mean, it is the most devastating moment that a family can endure in their entire life. I've had some scares with other children, accidents and cancer, things that didn't take their life. But the moment I heard that my son was never coming through the door again, that I would never hear his voice or see his face. It's one of the most powerful moments anyone could endure. And those of you here who have not suffered that loss, who have children, cannot even imagine what it's like to not have one come home again. And what did I do as a parent? I wanted to keep his memory alive, right? I wanted to hold on to every moment that he was with me. And so I started going through the drawers and the closets in my house, looking for memories. Something that I could keep him alive for one more moment. Cards and letters and things that he might have sent me while he was in basic. I mean, some way to remember him for just one more moment. And after I went through every drawer I could find in every closet, and he was married and had 2 children. He lived a life of his own, so he wasn't living with us. So I only had so many memories. Only those of him as a child. But I started to reach out to his friends and say, what do you have? Do you have any pictures? Do you have any stories? Can you tell me anything that would keep him alive for one more moment? And then when I went through that process, I looked out to America and I said, what are you doing to remember my son? What words do you say? What banners do you have? What phrases are there out there that lets me know that as a grieving dad, you are remembering not just him, but every one of these lives that were given for our nation's freedom? And honestly, you know, I couldn't find much. Back in '05, there was not a lot out there. I mean, I saw a lot of banners that said, support our troops, pray for our troops, yellow ribbons. I had yellow ribbons on every tree around my house. But those yellow ribbons didn't mean anything anymore to me because they turned black. And no one out there had a phrase or a banner that recognized his life. And people kept saying to me, oh, that was last year, that was 2 years ago. Haven't you gotten over that yet? You need to move on. No. And I was told, well, we have Memorial Day. How many families here need Memorial Day to be reminded that their loved one gave their life? None of us. Memorial Day is every day. Memorial Day has only been a reminder to me of how many people don't remember. And that's really a sad time. Recently, I found a survey that said that 80% of Americans don't know why Memorial Day exists. 80% of this country doesn't even know why we have a day, which is the only recognized time for our families. 80%, that's pretty sad. So that means that 20%, which is probably made up of the active duty, the veterans, the family of veterans, are really the only ones who are remembering. One of the ways that I went through this grieving process was to visit the funerals of military personnel that were dying after my son. That was the only way I could bring myself healing, was to go visit other families and say, I get it. I know what you're going through. I feel that. You're not going through it alone. And over the course of about 2 years, I visited, unfortunately, hundreds of families. I live in a military town, so unfortunately there were a lot of military deaths. And the 2 things I kept hearing over and over from families who had lost loved ones, because the one thing we want, we can't have. We want our loved ones home. We want to hug them one more time, just one more time. But the 2 things I kept hearing from families, it wasn't about gifts and it wasn't about money. It was about the fact that they wanted to make sure that their loved one's life was not wasted, that it was not in vain. And the second thing was that their loved one not be forgotten. Time of remembrance. Look around if you haven't had a chance later. This is remembering, right? They don't want their loved ones forgotten. And this is what's happening here. And I thought to myself, how can I bring remembrance to this nation? What could I do to wake up that 90%, 80% of those that don't understand what sacrifice is all about? How do you send that message to an apathetic population? I didn't know how. But one of the things that came to me happened to be a process of going to these funerals, because what I found, I really don't like seeing this flag falling over. Sorry. What I found was I saw the POW flag being carried by the Patriot Guard and other active motorcycle groups. And POW MIA flag was recognized at a lot of these funerals, and I'd ask myself, wow, that's really nice. Because those that were carrying that flag were carrying it because that was their generation. That was their association to military loss. Those that were missing, those that were captured. And I thought to myself, what is the best way to remember our nation's fallen military? Was to create a symbol, to create something that flies in the wind that nobody can ignore, something that when you saw it only meant one thing: thank you. I remember. I remember your loss. I remember your sacrifice. So I created a flag. It's called the Honor and Remember flag. You may not have seen it. You will in a few seconds. You'll see it many times over. The Honor and Remember flag was created and unveiled on Memorial Day of 2008, over 12 years ago, to become our nation's symbol of remembrance, a national symbol that should be on every flagpole in America, because it only means one thing. Not necessarily a message of remembrance for all of those heroes, but a message sent to the families that are still with us and still grieving and will be for the rest of their lives. A message that says, we will never forget. And the symbolism, I don't have a generic flag to hold up in front to explain the symbolism, but I will explain the symbolism now so that when you see it, you'll instantly know. There is a red field, American flag red, that represents the blood spilled for our nation's fallen. A white field that represents the purity of that sacrifice, because every one of our men and women said to their families, don't worry, we've got it covered, we'll be back. The purity of sacrifice. There's a blue star in the center that goes back to World War I, when a solid blue star was hung on the windows and doors of families that had a loved one in the fight, letting every one of their neighbors and community know they had one family member, 2, 3, 4, 5 family members. There could be that many blue stars. When that blue star was overlaid with a gold star, again, going back to World War I, that meant that that life was lost, that that individual was not coming home. It let the community know that that family was hurting and they needed to rally around and support them. There's a folded flag under those stars. It represents that flag that was handed to each family at the memorial of their loved one. The way I like to say it is that this nation was built on one folded flag at a time. Every one individual, every one a name with a family and a community surrounding them. There are flames above that folded flag, eternal reminder that we will never forget. And the words below, we will always honor their sacrifice and remember them individually by name. Over the past 12 years, we've had 4 bills in Congress. 4 bills in 12 years that have never gone anywhere to make this a nationally recognized symbol. To date, we have 26 state adoptions. 26 states have officially declared that the Honor and Remember flag be their state symbol of remembrance. Washington is not one of them. It is our hope that this one day flies on every flagpole in America. For who? For you families, so that when you see it, no matter where it is or what pole it's on, you know that somebody is thinking about you and your loss. But it's not just about getting the flag flying on a flagpole. It's about making sure that each family is recognized individually, that each one is remembered specifically. And so the flag was designed for another purpose. And that purpose is to be gifted to every family in America who has ever lost, regardless of generation, who has ever lost a loved one in service to our country, either while serving, and I want to make this very clear, or as a result of serving. And that includes those very, very tragic situations where those hidden wounds of war have taken our loved ones in many other circumstances. And so at this time, we're going to start what I hope is a very powerful moment for all of you, and that is the presentation of some flags for some very special families. It is our goal to make sure that every family has a flag. If you are here and you've never requested a flag, these flags come at no cost. We can show you how to request a flag. But to date, we have presented nearly 4,000 flags in the last 12 years. And Shirley's going to help me with that. And Tim, would you help us as well? So I need the first one. This one is folded. Excuse me just for a second. Sorry, I didn't prepare that properly. And I need that. Let's put that in the podium, please. It would be the first one, that's what happened. Would Mr. Schmeeman please come forward? And his wife? Yeah. And whoever's with them? Yeah, your whole family? Good. Sir, would you mind telling us a little bit about your son?
She would.
Thank you. I'm reminded of the last words of our national anthem, Home of the Brave. And all of you are brave, our warriors were brave. But when Dietrich was maybe 3 or 4 years old, he was a Marine Raider, and he was lost in Mississippi on a military airplane in 2017, July 7th. And I want to thank you for your description of what that is like. I hope
know, it just takes you right back. But anyway, when Dietrich was 3 or 4, his father and I were outside working on the house, and his brothers came out and said, "Mama, Dietrich is stuck on the ceiling, and you know, with 3 boys, anything is possible." So we ran into the house, and he had been challenged to walk up the hallway walls. And so he had his hands on one wall and his legs on the other, and he was stuck on the ceiling, but he couldn't get down. I knew I was in for a ride with adventure, and he certainly served selflessly. When he was in 4th or 5th grade, he came downstairs one day and he said, "Mom, there are worse things than dying, and I'm not afraid to die." And he was not afraid. He was selfless, just like all of your loved ones were. They were selfless and brave, and we just can't thank them enough, and anything we can do to remember them and let them live in our hearts, and to let other people know. People need to know that there are people fighting for their freedom. Thank you.
This honor and remember flag, go ahead, is presented with eternal gratitude and respect in memory of Sergeant Dietrich Smeeman. With this flag, we honor this patriot's unwavering dedication and remember their selfless sacrifice. By displaying this symbol collectively as a nation, we humbly recognize the enormity of your loss and respectfully say, thank you. Go ahead, Phil. You want to present that? Present it to us. Could I have the Ellis family, please? You guys stand up. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to try and multitask here. One thing that I remember about Robbie, this was while he was deployed. Actually, when he went to sign up, he was, his MOS was 88 Mike, which was a truck driver. Knowing Robbie, when he got his license, he was involved in 2 accidents. He was in the Running Start program, and he was coming home from CBC, and that was his first accident. He rear-ended and caused a chain reaction right there in front of CBC. And my husband fixed his car, got it all fixed and got it running, and he had his car for about a month and was backing out of the parking spot in his at the McDonald's here, and was rear-ended himself. The car was totaled at that point, and when he said, "Mom, I picked my MOS for the Army," and he said, "It's an 88 Mike," and I went, "Well, what's that?" And I said, he said, "Truck driver," and I went, "Oh my gosh." I said, "Do you not realize that your nickname is Crash? Why did they do that?" He goes, "Well, it was the only thing available," and I'm going, "Oh my gosh." And anyway, about a month before about a month, we get a letter in the mail from his commanding officer saying that he was an outstanding example and a benefit in his unit. And I replied back to Robbie and told him, I said, we just got this letter in the mail saying that you're an outstanding member of your unit and that people look to you as an example. And I'm going, do they know your nickname? And he goes, yes, they do. And I'm going, oh, okay. So that was one of my great memories of him.
Thank you. Go ahead. Yeah. Guys, open it right here so everyone can see it and then you can show it to them. Just grab the red. Grab the red. This honor and remember flag is presented with eternal gratitude and respect in memory of Specialist Robert W. Ellis. With this flag, we honor this patriot's unwavering dedication and remember his selfless sacrifice. By displaying this symbol collectively as a nation, we humbly recognize the enormity of your loss and respectfully say thank you. Okay. There you go. Could I have Pam and Romar Schwerner, please?
Yeah, I know. Too much shit.
Okay. Yeah, there, got it. I remember, something I remember about Betty, she was in the first Gulf War, and she was in Iraq, she was in Bosnia, and she was a trauma nurse. And she followed the troops around, and when one was injured, she would get them stable enough to send them to the green zone in Iraq where the doctors took care of them and stuff. And that same time she was in Iraq, our oldest son, Tyler, was in Iraq. And I always took comfort in thinking, well, if he got injured, Betty could take care of him. And Betty came home after 15 months from Iraq, and she was pretty worn out. She had a lot of young men and women die in her arms because she couldn't stabilize them to send them to the green zone. And I had a man tell me once, he said, you know, every young hero that died in Betty's arms, they took a piece of her. And towards the end, there was no pieces left. And when Betty found out they wouldn't let her go to Afghanistan because all these young men and women were her children, she had none, that's when she took her life. And I know she is up there looking down, and she's with all of her children, and she's loving each one of your sons and daughters and brothers and sisters.
I might say that Betty, when we went through her things, she had 12 DD-214s. In other words, she worked here at Cadillac, but anytime an event would come up, she'd call the Army, and of course they took her. I might also say that when they, in 2004 in Iraq there, when they blew up the U.S. Embassy there in the Green Zone, she was in charge of setting up the triage for that particular event. But she was just amazing. And the other thing that bothered her about Iraq is that it was the first conflict that she had been in where the nurses and whatnot were armed. She had, yeah, she had a 9mm pistol, and I think it was an M4 rifle, and she called it Thelma and Louise.
This honor and remember flag is presented with eternal gratitude and respect in memory of Major Betty L. Egbert. With this flag, we honor this patriot's unwavering dedication and remember her selfless sacrifice. By displaying this symbol collectively as a nation, we humbly recognize the enormity of your loss and respectfully say thank you.
Open it up so you can take a picture. Open it up.
Would Lori and Lauren Talent, if you're here, please come forward.
Good afternoon. I'm Lori. I'm Sergeant Travis Pfister. His mother, and this is his father, his stepfather. Travis was a crew chief in the Marines, and he was in Iraq. He was flying aboard with a CH-46. They used to call it the Frog, but it was a medevac helicopter. They did medevac missions for Iraqi. They'd fly to the front lines, pick them up, and take them to triage to kind of hopefully make it within that golden hour. The stories he used to tell were horrific, but he was doing what he wanted to do. He even got out of the Marines after his 2 tours and said he could not watch the younger soldiers talk about what was coming up and look at how they were so scared and not knowing. So he re-enlisted and went back over to Iraq. He was on his last mission before they were to come home. And they had done a blood run back to the front lines. They had volunteered for it. And they were waiting for him and shot him down. The one saving grace that I find amongst all of this, all of you fathers, mothers, wives, sons and daughters, is that we had this time with these children, these adults that enriched our lives and gave so much for everybody else. Thank you.
This honor and remember flag is presented with eternal gratitude and respect in memory of Sergeant Travis D. Pfister. With this flag, we honor this patriot's unwavering dedication and remember his selfless sacrifice. By displaying this symbol collectively as a nation, we humbly recognize the enormity of your loss and respectfully say thank you. Could I please have Melissa Volker? Is she here? Would you like to say anything?
So my son lived a very short life. He was 22, a staff sergeant in the U.S. Air Force stationed in Elmendorf, Alaska. He was an EMT-3 and a firefighter. And he took his life December 7th, 2013, and we didn't find him for a couple more days. So he lost his voice, and so I'm going to focus on what I need to do forward, and that's to be his voice, to be his person that will always make sure that we know that there's a war here at home as well, and what we can do to make things better. These talks never get easier. And I also, to get through his anniversary of his loss, I make snowflakes for everyone that always says never forgotten. And I make December 7th, that's the day that we will come and we will decorate our house and different things. Because my daughter lost her mom that day, and she was young. And so we're trying to get back the spirit, a new normal, maybe different traditions, because all of our traditions just hurt too bad. So I was able to get some help myself to help others, and that's my mission, and to always be Tanner's voice, and to love and honor everybody, and always be that kind, gentle person that is there for anybody. Because we all have stuff inside our hearts that sometimes are hard. And 2020, you suck. So I'm looking forward to 2021 and what we can do together to make a difference for these young men and women.
This honor and remember flag is presented with eternal gratitude and respect in memory of Staff Sergeant Tanner A. Volkers. With this flag, we honor this patriot's unwavering dedication and remember his selfless sacrifice. By displaying this symbol collectively as a nation, we humbly recognize the enormity of your loss and respectfully say, thank you. If I could ask Christine and Calvin Donstra, Christine, would you like to say anything, or? No? Okay. Calvin, no?
So Brandon was, of course, a stepson and everything, but I looked to him as, I loved him as my real son and everything, and we had a good time together. And Brandon was, I didn't realize at the time, but when he was younger, he was always a leader. He was like 6'7". People looked up to him, obviously, but in other ways too. And we got a letter from his commander saying what a leader Brandon was, and how all his fellow people, the guys he worked with, liked him, looked up to him, and it was 10 days before they were to come home, and they had a mission that was put out there, but nobody wanted to go to it or go on it. And his commander in the letter wrote how Brandon rallied his troop, fellow people, I don't know what to call them, but how they would voluntarily go on this mission. And he was a lead gunner on the mission, and they were on the way back when they were struck by an IED, and he was the only one that was injured in the thing. But I never realized how much of a leader he was, how people looked up to him. And we even got a letter a few years after he had passed, and it was from somebody we didn't even know that knew Brandon, and he was working, and I'm not sure what all of the letter, but all I know in the letter is how much this lady looked up to Brandon, and what a good person he was, and what they wrote about him, and it made me feel good that he was that type of a person, and he always liked to have a good time.
This honor and remember flag is presented with eternal gratitude and respect in memory of Sergeant Brandon S. Hawking. With this flag, we honor this patriot's unwavering dedication and remember his selfless sacrifice. By displaying this symbol collectively as a nation, we humbly recognize the enormity of your loss and respectfully say thank you. She's here. I'm not sure if she's here, but is Anastasia Reef, is she here? Anastasia? No? Okay. Then I'd like, this is the last presentation we have for the Osario family. Please come forward.
It's been over a year since I've even been able to talk about him, so bear with me. Michael was little. He was 20 years old. Little. Maybe 120 pounds soaking wet. I want to tell him the story because it makes me laugh about airports in general. But he came walking up to me the day of to all of us the day of his deployment. He and Scott. A gun on each shoulder, sidearm, gun in his arms. We gave him a hug, we said our goodbyes. We get about 2 miles down the road, he calls us. You guys need to come get this thing for me. Okay, what is it? My Leatherman. Well, why's that? They won't let me get on the plane with it. I'm like, okay, I guess that makes a lot of sense, but we just we're thankful to be here. We're sometimes we have a tendency to feel like we're alone. We're from a real small town, so very grateful and appreciative, and we feel for everybody that's here.
So in other words, they wouldn't let him take on a Leatherman, but he went on there with 4 guns. Okay. Just wanted to get that story straight. Oh my goodness. Let them open it. This honor and remember flag is presented with eternal gratitude and respect in memory of Specialist Michael T. Osorio. With this flag, we honor this patriot's unwavering dedication and remember his selfless sacrifice. By displaying this symbol collectively as a nation, we humbly recognize the enormity of your loss and respectfully say, thank you. That concludes my time here with presentations. I want to thank Shirley and the Time of Remembrance for just an amazing opportunity to come and share my story and to honor each one of you and hopefully many, many more. Unfortunately, but hopefully many, many more as your loved ones are recognized with this symbol across America. Thank you. God bless you.